So today we've got a lot to get through. As I mentioned, the first bit is a bit of me doing a show and tell, and the second bit is where we can go in and try some of the learning and accessibility tools that we'll be having a closer look at. The training summary, again, I'll send this out as a link after this session, but I'll pop that in the chat now for you as well. In this training summary, there's quite a few links. Let me zoom up to the top. Here we go. So there's quite a few links, so you can have a look at some of the examples I'm showing after the session. So with that, and I will get you to jump in to a browser to go to the EdPass portal so I can show you how to access things first. So if you haven't already, can you open up a browser and can you go to the EdPass portal? I'll just pop that in the chat and then I'll just wait for people to give me a thumbs up that they're opened, that they've opened the EdPass portal, because as I said, we've got a lot to go through, so I don't want to lose anyone at the beginning. Thanks, Kelly. Just give people one more moment to get on, especially if you're not working from a school or office, you might have to do the multi-factor authentication. Okay, hopefully everyone is in the EdPass portal. The reason why I like to come into the EdPass portal is if you are logged on to Microsoft free EdPass, you're guaranteed to be using your @schools email address. This is particularly important if you are a corporate person, because you might be logged in with your SA Gov and the apps that you have access to are different in your SA Gov to your Microsoft @schools email. So in EdPass portal, if we scroll down to the productivity and collaboration section, we've got a whole lot of apps here that we've got tiles for, but in fact, you've got access to heaps more apps and we can access them through a direct link, or I'm going to show you from here. We click on this Microsoft 365 portal, and this will take us to the Copilot homepage. So it's a little bit more long-winded than it used to be. Just with Copilot, we as staff have access to Copilot, but students don't. So students, and I'll bring up my student account quickly, hopefully. Students, when they come in, let me just go back. We'll see this page rather than the window where you can put in an AI prompt. So just if you're working with students, know that theirs looks different. Okay, so from this page, we can go to the waffle in the top left. And then we've got some popular apps there as well, but we're going to click on the more apps. And then we want to click on all apps. And this gets us to the page where we can see all the Microsoft apps that we can access with our licensing. So you can see there's a lot more on there than in the EdPass portal. I'm just going to go back one page because I forgot to mention. So let's do that again. More apps. On this page, before you click that all apps, you've also got this install apps button. So again, depending on whether you are a permanent staff member or a TRT, TRTs don't have the install license unless they've been assigned to a school. But if you are a permanent staff member or a corporate person, you've got this ability to install your apps from this page. Okay, so back in here, I'm going to all apps, and then I can see this whole range of apps again. Now, we're not going to have time to look at all of the apps today. I'm just going to dive into a few of them and show some examples as well. So first of all, I'm going to start off with one that you're probably familiar with, but you might not know of a couple of things that you can access on the web version and also on the new Outlook version. So you might be using Classic Outlook. You won't find these in Classic Outlook, but you will in new Outlook. So if you're with me, let's click on Outlook. And in here, I'm just going to show you a couple of things down the side. So the first one is this to-do. This is one of my favourite in Outlook because I'm a list person and I'm also someone that flags emails and then forgets I've flagged them. So from this to-do, you can see I've got this flagged email section. When I click in there, I can see all the emails that I have flagged. So if I click on there, it should bring me up. Oh, yep, there is a preview. And when I click open, it will open the email up for me. So really great. I've also got in here something called My Day. Now, this is linked to Microsoft Planner, which we will have a quick dive into in a moment as well. If someone or you have assigned yourself something that's due today, it will pop up here, but I can also add tasks myself. So Microsoft training, oops, be helpful if I spelled it correct, add, and if I want to on here, I can add that due date of today and it pops up here as well. So if I put it on tomorrow, when I clicked in My Day tomorrow, it would appear there as well. Under important as well, these are things that I've favorited. So again, if I go back to my flagged emails, if this one's a really important and I favorite it in here, when I go to important, there it is, it's popped up here. So again, a really easy way for you to plan and manage your emails and your tasks. One more thing in here that I am going to pop or highlight under the people. If you go to your contact list, one thing that I found really helpful when I was a teacher is to create a contact list with my parents at the beginning of the year or the beginning of the new semester. You could, if you're in high school, create one for each of your classes. When you create a list, what this means is you don't have to remember or don't have to add everyone's email address in each time you send an email. So I'm back in people. I've gone to your contact list, or I don't even have to be there. But under here, instead of new contact, I go to new contact list, and that's going to walk me through creating that list. If you're not a teacher, again, if you're in corporate, if there's a group of people, so maybe even your team, if you belong to a large team, do a list and it saves you so much time. I will also mention now in Outlook on the web, you do have this Copilot button. I tried it out the other day. It is also available in the classic Outlook on the desktop. It didn't save me much time. In fact, I asked it to summarize my emails and it took me longer to read the summary than it did to read the actual email. But just be aware, Copilot is now available in Outlook. Okay, so I can either go back to that tab here or I can go to the waffle menu here and go more apps here. I'm just going to click back into my tab there though. So we've had a quick look at Outlook. The next one I'm going to quickly go into is OneDrive. Again, just a show of thumbs. Who's here is using OneDrive already? Maybe no, but one person, a couple of people. Okay, so if you aren't using OneDrive already, this is a brilliant app to start using. If you don't use any of the apps I go through today, use OneDrive. OneDrive is our online space. You have 1 terabyte of space. And if I scroll down here, I can see this account has 1 terabyte and I've used 1%. 1 terabyte is a huge amount of space, unless you're a media arts teacher, in which case you might need more, and you can put in a ticket to the service desk to get that expanded if you need it. What is it? It is your online cloud storage space. So if you are one of those people that uses a USB or an external hard drive, switch to OneDrive instead. OneDrive allows you to access your files from anywhere and any device. So if you are using an iPad in the classroom, if you download the OneDrive app on that iPad, you can save things directly into OneDrive and then open them up on your laptop when you're working on your laptop, for example. If you have a phone, you can do the same on your phone. Some really cool features in here. Again, I'm not going to go into too much depth in here, but some ones that you might miss. There's a media one here. When you click on there, any images or movies or movie files, video files that you've saved to your OneDrive pop up as thumbnails. Again, if you're a media art teacher, you might have too many images in here for it to show, but on the whole, if you're not saving too many images, you'll see them as thumbnails in there. Another one that's really good, again, if you're corporate, you probably won't see much in here because you might be having your meetings with your SA.gov email, not your @schools. But if you're having Teams meetings, in the meeting section, you can go in, you can see if the meeting was recorded, you can go in and watch the recording if you need to. If anything was shared during that meeting, you can access those files directly from that meeting as well. So really handy if you knew something was shared, but you've forgotten what the name of the file was, you can get it from here. The other one I'm going to go in quickly is this shared. Now in this shared, you've got with you and by you. This is really handy. Again, if, well, there's people as well, but if you want to check, I'm going to click on by you, what files you've actually shared with people, you can go in here and you can see the list of all the files you've shared. And if you think, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have shared that one, you can go in and manage the access and stop it being shared. The people one here shows you all the people that you have shared files with or who are sharing files with you. So again, this one's a really handy one if you remember the person that shared a file with you, but you can't remember what they shared. One more quick thing before we dive out. You've also got this quick access down here. These are all the teams that you belong to. And so if I go into this one, for example, I can see all the folders and files in this team without all the noise associated with Microsoft Teams. So a really quick way to access any files saved in Teams. Okay, let's leave OneDrive. Any questions? Okay, hopefully no more questions on OneDrive. I'm back in my All Apps. Again, if I go back to OneDrive quickly, I've got that waffle menu in the top left. I can click on there and go to more apps. Actually, I'll do it this way this time. That brings me back to this page, and then my All Apps gets me back to all my apps. Okay, I'm going to highlight Clipchamp. This one here is a video editing software. If you're old enough to remember Windows Movie Maker, you might have been a teacher using it or a student. This is Microsoft's modern equivalent. You can screen record, which is really handy if you're creating resources to help your students. You can also record your webcam directly as well. Or if you're using an iPad with the Clipchamp app, you can record and film a video as well. So if I just go into this one quickly, hopefully this will work, and edit. You can see I've got some tools. I can trim, I can change things a bit. Let's open in the editor instead. Because in the editor itself, you'll see that the layout is a little bit like iMovie, if you're used to iMovie, or Adobe Premiere, not Premiere Pro, the more simplified video editor. So again, you've got your timeline here, and you can add all sorts of things into that movie and then export it. Right, back in apps. Let's see, I will quickly dive into Loop. Loop didn't used to be very helpful. They have recently made some big improvements. Loop lets you collaborate, but it's a little bit different from collaborating on a document. So let me just go into my workspaces. Here's one I prepared earlier. So you can see this type of loop. I'm able to assign things to people. I've got a table in here, so I can add cards, I can add different pages, and I can collaborate. You might have seen Loop in Microsoft Teams. So if I go to recent, actually notifications, you can see here this Nikki assigned a task to me, and that was actually in a Microsoft Teams. I go to recent, let's go into excursion ideas. So here you can see this is a list, and again, it's a collaborative space. It isn't static, and it's different to a Word document. When you do create new, oops, we don't want a new workspace. Let's go back into my workspace and let's create new in here. New page. You do have a whole lot of different templates that you can use. Now, most of these aren't very education focused, but they might be useful. Some of them, like meeting notes and things like that, are a good template that you can adapt. Okay, back to my apps again. And I am going to jump into OneNote. Now again, OneNote has recently been updated, and you'll now in the web version see these Copilot notebooks. This is again an AI tool that Microsoft has quite recently released. Normal notebooks in OneNote look like this. So we have these sections that you can use, and then inside those sections, let's go to view menu, you have pages. So OneNote, if you've never used it before, is a bit like, if you remember those yellow spirally booklets with the metal spirals down the edge and the different files that were color-coded. Your OneNote is your digital version of this, in that we have those file sections here, And then we have our pages down the side here. Now, as a teacher, I absolutely love this. OneNote was where I worked, and I had OneNote on my board all the time. There is a class notebook version, which is specifically designed for teachers to use with students. However, you can use it without students as well. So this one here is an example, for example, of a staff meeting OneNote. The nice thing about using OneNote for something like meeting minutes, is that you don't have to open a Word document to get each of the different pages. So here I've got my agendas, and you can see I've got my whole terms agendas here, and I can quickly click into each one as I go. Same with my minutes. I've got my weeks, so I can do a search, or I can see things just by clicking through rather than having to go in and find which document something was in. So OneNote is really good like that. This example here, let me just change the zoom, is more of a teaching example, but you can see I've got lines on the board. I can do drawing with a drawing tool. So I've got a whole range of tools in here I can use. This one I'm viewing only, that's why they're grayed out. I can do something called replay. Hopefully I can. I reckon I can't on this version, but on the desktop version you can do replay, which will replay the order in which the strokes were written on the screen. So really a cool thing. The new feature that I mentioned was this Copilot Notebooks, and this allows you to add files, and then you can create things like mind maps or study guides, or you can ask Copilot questions and it will go into your files that you've added as a reference and get the information from those files. So rather than AI just going out and using what it has in its mind and its brain, its memory banks, it will go in and look specifically at the files you've created, as well as using the more broader AI smarts. So again, something to maybe have a play around with. Again, Copilot notebooks are not available for students. Okay, back to my apps, and we will have a quick look at Planner. So I mentioned in Outlook To Do that it was similar to Planner. Planner is more of a more in-depth way to organise your work. Again, you have tasks that are related to you. You have plans that are related to you, but you can also create plans within Teams, so Microsoft Teams. So for example, this Sports Day team, this Sports Day plan is in this Flinders Street staff team. And so this one is an example of where I might be planning Sports Day and I've assigned different staff different tasks to do. You've got these things called buckets, which allow you to organise the tasks in different areas. And you've got these task cards that allow you to add more details, and you can also add checklist different steps. So what could we do here? A signing sheet. And we could do create, register, etc. So you can break up your things into more little steps and checklists. So again, something to have a think about. The nice thing about this, when I say it's in Teams, is you can actually, and I'm not going to be in the right team, but let's see if I can find it. Here we go. That looks better. Here we go. Sports Day. I've got too many teams named the same thing. So you can see this plan is inside of my team, which is really handy if I want all my staff and my colleagues are going to that team all the time. I've got it right here and I kick things off in here. And if I go back to my browser, you'll see if I refresh, that task has been ticked off in Planner. If I assign it with a due date and I assign it to myself, it's also going to show up in my Outlook under that to-do task list. So a really nice way of everything connecting. Okay, back in apps. I know we're fast running out of time. There's a few more that I want to highlight though before we do the hands-on section. So forms, if you have used Google Forms or SurveyMonkey, Forms is Microsoft's version of these. There's all sorts of ways you can use forms. I've just got a few examples that I've linked to as well. So this one here is an example of a formative assessment you might give students. It's got something called branching in it. It's a quiz. So you can see I've indicated the correct answers where it's multiple choice. If I go to preview, you can see here it is. If I put in the wrong answer and go next, it's going to give me a clue. I can go back and hopefully get it right. And then it goes on to the next question. Or if I get it wrong, again, I've designed it to give me a hint. But if I still don't know how to tell the time again, I can go next and go on to the next question as well. So again, a really clever way to support those students that need that extra help with that thing that I just mentioned called branching. One of the great things about Microsoft Forms is it can be shared externally. So a lot of the Microsoft apps can't be shared externally. So if you're doing collaboration, it's all within what we call tenancy. So that means you can only share things with people with an @schools email, or so that's staff and students. But forms, you can share a link externally for people to fill out the form. So again, this is an example. I put in a question that asks for the person's name. Again, if I tick that I can go several days a week, it will then give me some extra questions, whereas if I just tick occasionally, it doesn't ask me for any additional information. So really handy if you're wanting parents or community members to give you information. It's also handy for students. Let's go in and find the one that I wanted. So if students are wanting to collect data for things like maths, or if they're doing their learning subject, I've forgotten what it's called, in year 11, where they want to, their research project, where they want to collect information, they can create their own forms. Can I find where it is? The one I wanted to show you. So again, students can create these, they can design the questions, and then they can go in and collect responses and get that link. You see here, we've got that option for anyone can respond, so they can get that link and then send that via email, or even create a QR code and print that off and get people to fill in their survey. So really good way of collecting data. If I just go back to forms, another really nice thing about forms is, let's find the right one again. And it's not going to show me. Here we go. It does give you some really nice analytics. So in this one, for example, where I've got 107 responses, it's giving me some nice graphs. It will also give me some word clouds. So really useful if you're wanting to get a really nice snapshot of the data without having to do any of the work yourself. If you want to do work and analyze that data though, you do have this Excel spreadsheet link. I'm not going to click on it because it's got people's data in there, but you can click on that. You can use that data. You can create your own graphs. You can link it to all sorts of things. So really powerful way to use data. You can also in here download a copy. You can also, where is it? Print a summary or share the summary link. So if you created the form, you don't want anyone to be able to edit the back end or get to this data, you can still share that summary, which is this page here with the brief global kind of responses. So if you need to share that with someone outside of your team, for example. So Microsoft Forms, really, really powerful. Okay, back into apps. We also have Sway. Now Sway, quite a few schools use this for their newsletter. Nice thing about Sway is you've got something called analytics. So if you're sending out a PDF by email, for example, you don't get to see whether people are actually opening that PDF. If you send a link to a Sway though, you don't get really detailed analytics, but you do get some analytics. So for example, I can see this one here, Tech Loan Kits, has got 234 views. Average time was 2 minutes and 26% completion. So I can see most people just glanced at it and a few people did an in-depth read. Whereas this one, you can see one view, but the person looked at most of it. So it gives you a bit of an idea of whether your communications are being looked at, and then you can think about how you might improve them. Let's have a look at a couple of examples of Sway so you can see what I'm talking about. So this one here is an example of a PD presentation. This is the back end. So the back end looks a little bit complex. That's because Sway uses these things called kind of like cards, and you can get the different things in there. But if I click on play, you can see this one is one that's horizontal. The nice thing is if I move it down and if I change the screen to a mobile phone size, for example, you can see it's changed the formatting to fit my screen size. So that's an example of one you might create for your staff. This one here is an example of a newsletter. So here we've got some nice side headings that come in. We've got a nice table. And we have some nice photos in here. We've got a form embedded. So I want my parents to fill that out. We've got something called a stack as well. So if you've got lots of community events that people have asked you to add to your newsletter, instead of it being 20 pages long, you can add a stack where you've got those in, and people can zoom in if they want to look at it in more detail. You can embed videos. Now, you used to be able to embed your own videos. Now you can only embed YouTube videos and some other linked online videos. So just be careful about that. You can't just upload your own videos anymore. Okay, any questions there? I know I'm moving really fast, but I'm hopefully just giving you a little bit of an idea about some possibilities for you to then explore further. Right, so I think I've gone or highlighted most of the apps. I will quickly go into Power Automate because this one is really powerful if you're wanting to do automations. I can think of some great examples if you're a teacher, but this one's probably more for corporate people. What it does, and I'll just quickly dive into my flows. This one here, for example, works off a form. So I've created a Microsoft form, and this one, when a form is submitted, what it does is it creates a SharePoint list item, but the main thing is it sends me an email. So again, if you did create a Microsoft form that you wanted your families to fill out, you could pair that form with something like Power Automate so that you got an alert, in this case an email, but it could be a Teams message, or your shared mailbox got an alert to let you know that the form had been filled out. In this case, you can see in the email, this particular one gets the data from the form. So the email will tell me what's been put in the form as well. So this example is a leave response. So it tells me what category of leave the person requested, the start date and end date, whether they booked a TRT, and whether they've got pre-approval. So again, a hugely powerful app, not giving it justice at all, but just letting you know that it exists. Okay, heaps more in there, but what I want us to do now is do a bit of doing, fingers crossed. So if you haven't already, go back to this page. I'll pop the link directly in here just in case you have got completely lost. What we're going to go to now is Microsoft Word. So if you open up Microsoft Word, and again, I'll pop that link in the chat as well. Okay, so I think most people have opened up Word or are just getting there. The reason we're using online Word is the two tools we're going to have a quick look at now work best with the web version. Some version of them are available in the desktop app, but they're more powerful in the web version. So can I get you to just create a blank document? And the first one we're going to look at is one called Dictate. Now, Dictate allows me to speak, and when I speak, it's going to type what I'm saying on the screen. This is great if you are a slow typer and a good speaker. It is also great to show your students because, again, your students might not be able to type, or they might have lots of really good ideas buzzing around in their head and struggle to write them out. If you show them Dictate, yes, you might struggle in a really noisy class environment, but if you've got access or they've got access to headphones and a mic, this might be a tool that helps them put down their thoughts and help them start off with their writing. So Dictate, you'll find this not only in Word, it's in PowerPoint, it's all over the place. In the home ribbon, it's this microphone icon here. If I go to the down, I've got dictate and transcribe. If I select transcribe, that is going to put in the time, so it's going to give me a timestamp. It will also recognize if I've got more than one speaker. So if I wanted to record a meeting, for example, where I've got one mic and we're just recording in a room, I might choose transcribe, but I'm going to click dictate. You might need to allow your microphone, so let's go allow. And now, let's see if it will do it for me. Sometimes it struggles when I'm in a Teams meeting as well. Let's see. Will it work? Will it just, yes, it's working. Thank goodness for that. So you can see it hasn't picked up all what I'm saying. It's pretty good, but I will have to go in and do some editing after the fact. Now, it hasn't also put in capitalization. Normally it does that, so I'm not sure why it isn't in this example. I can tell it to put in pronunciation. Oh, look, it has now edited it for me as well. So if I do say full stop, it will change that to a full stop. If you're a language teacher as well, this is brilliant for getting students to practice their oral speaking skills. So if I stop my dictation for a moment, go to my settings, you can see I can change the language. I happen to speak a bit of French. So if I say it, and now if I change it or start, maintenant, si je parle en français, it's not working for me. Now, it hasn't worked at all. Always a risk when you're doing a live demonstration. It is still using my English and it hasn't translated my French at all. It normally does work. I won't make it or try it again. But it normally is a really good tool if you're getting students to practice in another language. I think it's probably because I started in English and like me changing my language halfway through. Okay, hopefully, fingers crossed, you've been able to get dictate to work. While we're in Word, the other tool I want us to have a look at is something called Immersive Reader. So Immersive Reader, I'm going to put my cursor up the top. If you haven't got dictate to work and don't have 2 lines of text, can you spend half a minute now just writing a short bit of text? So maybe this is a test to try out Microsoft tools, something like that, but see if you can get 2 lines. So let me just copy and paste that in so I can get more than 1 line of text. I'm going to put my cursor up the top. So if you put your cursor up the top at the beginning of your text. And then if you can just give me a thumbs up again, so I know that you've got some text on your screen. Okay, just giving people a tiny bit more time. While I do that, I'll just talk about the tool. So Immersive Reader was developed by Microsoft to help people with dyslexia. However, it is a brilliant tool to help anyone. I'm just going to bring up a slide, hopefully. It is in all of these different programs, and wherever you see this nice icon here, you can access Immersive Reader. You see it's in Minecraft, it's in Teams, it's all over the place. So hopefully you've now all got something in Word. So my cursor's at the beginning. I go to Review. No, I don't. I go to View and I'm going to select this Immersive Reader. You can see that icon there. What it will do is it will change my page. And I better just make sure I'm sharing my sound. Okay, so what it has done is it's taken the text and it's changed it to make it more friendly for me as a reader. If I press the play,
Will it work?
it is going to read the text back to me. Down here I've got some voice settings. I can change it to a male if I want to hear it read as a male, and I can change the speed as well.
Will it just? Yes.
Okay, so I've got those. But what's really powerful is I've got some things over here in the top right as well. So text preferences, I can make it bigger. So if I've got students that struggle with reading and eyesight, they can make it bigger. The computer will remember these settings the next time they use Immersive Reader. I can change the font, and believe it or not, Comic Sans is the easiest for dyslexic students and people to read. I can also change the screen contrast colours. So maybe I find it easier to read on a yellow background or a green. It will remember these next time I go in as well. In this next one, the grammar options, this one is really powerful if you're teaching English to students and parts of speech. So I can toggle on the different parts of speech that I want to highlight. If I use a program with particular colours, I can use those as well. What I found really powerful is that I could then take a screenshot. So if I've got the snippet tool, I could just take a screenshot with the snippet tool, or I could use Windows key, Shift and S to open that up and take a screenshot. And then I can pop that into a PowerPoint or something like that, and I can do my annotations over the top as well. Back in my grammar options, I can also put in syllables. So if I'm working with my students on breaking things up, again, really powerful, and labels. This last one, I can do just one line of text. So again, if your students are overwhelmed with lots of things on the screen, you can do this line focus so that they can go through like that. And I always struggle to get my line focus back. I think I'm going to have to go back and go back in. So because we're now on Word Online, look, there it is. It's saved for me automatically. Phew. I'm going back in. If yours did the same, I'll go back again. You should find it if you scroll down in the recent. Let's go back to my Immersive Reader. So that was in View. And pure, it doesn't have my line focus on again. And normally it allows me to show 3 lines and more lines of text, but it might just be that I've got too few words on the screen. You can also use the translate feature. So again, I'm going to use French because I know French. I can translate by word. So if I click here, you can see it's got the French underneath, and it will say it as well.
Va marcher.
It's pretty good. Work could be translated lots of ways in French. If it was the noun, it would be travailler, but it is chosen va marcher, which is kind of like the slang verb for it. So it's pretty good. I can also translate the whole document. So if you're working, for example, with students that have English as their second language, you could translate the document into their mother tongue or their family if you're working with families as well. Again, it will read it out. And if you've got the picture that's not a good example. Here we go. No picture for that as well. Don't think there's anything in here. Let's see, marcher, walk. So that's the literal translation, whereas va marcher is work rather than walk. But you can see here it's got some images as well. In here as well, there is this thing called reading practice. Let's change it back to English. Australia. So reading practice will allow me to read it. So I'll just do a quick practice. Will it work? Will it just? Yes, it's working. So I record myself and then it gives me a bit of a report. So again, really helpful for your students. On that, there is also an app called Reading Coach. And Reading Coach allows you to do something similar. So if I put in here weekly reading and spell weekly correctly, put the date as tomorrow. I can create an assignment and then in my student account, so I could give that code to all my students. Here's my student account as well. If I go in and what do I want to do? Let's practice reading, join a practice, put in that code there. Then my students can do a reading practice for me. This one here, I didn't give them a text, but I could give them a text. And that will show up once they do it. Hopefully this will show. No, it's not going to show me, but it will show up once they do it. Let's see. No, so it will show up and give me a little summary of how they've gone. This one here you can do without using class teams. It's just simply, as you saw there, a code. This one does give you practice questions at the end as well, or not practice questions, but if there's words that a student struggles with, it will ask them to practice that. Okay, we have almost run out of time. I think I'm going to have to adjust the time of these. We had a quick look at Dictate. We've had a quick look at Immersive Reader and Reading Practice and Reading Coach. There are some other ones that I was hoping we would get a chance to look at, but we haven't. Live captions are amazing, especially if you've got students that are hard of hearing, or again, students that might not have English as their first language, and accessing the written text might be helpful for them. So live captions you can have in PowerPoint. If I turn them, I can't turn them on here, but you can go to slideshow and click this always use subtitles, and then when you present the show or the PowerPoint, you can see here on that screenshot the closed captions will show at the bottom of your presentation. You can also turn these on in Word. Teams. So again, if you're in a really noisy atmosphere and you've got a Teams meeting, maybe you're showing your class, or maybe it's just you trying to attend a meeting, you can turn your closed captions on and then you can see those at the bottom of your Teams meeting screen as well. Reflect, again, I haven't had a chance to show you. That's another app here that lets you do a quick check-in. It's also got a whole lot of brain break resources that they're not department endorsed, so please have a look and make sure they fit your class and your context before you go ahead and use them. But really good resource that you can access when you do a check-in. And again, you don't need to have class teams to do this. You can just use the Reflex app. You get a nice visual of how your class is going. You can see here there's no names on students, so I can show this on my board if I want to get an overall picture, or I can just keep this to myself as a teacher. In PowerPoint as well, there's a really cool feature called Rehearse Coach. There it is, Rehearse with Coach there. And again, that lets students practice giving a presentation, and then they get a nice report that gives them feedback. These ones here, so the Rehearse with Coach and the Immersive Reader, are also what we call learning accelerators. And I know we've gone over, so apologies. These are all part of Microsoft Class Teams. And these ones here give teachers more analytics around what the student is doing and what the class is doing. So this one's similar to what we saw with the reading coach. You can put in a text and it will give you a nice report showing how the student went in terms of their speed, how many words they got correct. And also, if you're doing this with your whole class, you'll get analytics across your whole class as well. There's also speaker progress, which is similar to that one I just showed you in PowerPoint. It records the student giving the presentation and then gives you that report. Search progress is amazing because it actually makes students think about what sources they're choosing when they're doing research and how many sources they're using to write as well. So again, really worth having a look at, and I'll send you some follow-up resources for that. I know we've gone over. Apologies. Hopefully you've come away from this session not knowing how to do anything, but hopefully feeling a bit more excited and a bit infused about some of these tools that you will hopefully be able to look at more in depth yourself. We do run sessions on most of them as well, so have a look out on the Digital Skills dashboard. There it is there for when we run sessions.